All right, so I just seen a video from tonight's conversation. A young brother asked the question, why do single men without children receive backlash for not wanting to commit to single mothers?
As a single man who doesn't have any kids, why do we catch criticism for not wanting to commit to a woman who has kids?
Now, when he asked that question, they didn't really answer his question, and they all proceeded to provide backlash. Like, if you listen to the responses, they all were providing some form of criticism or an attack on the question rather than simply answering it.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's not that y'all catch criticism from not wanting to date a woman who has kids. It's that because when you don't want to date this woman who has kids, you interfere with other people wanting to date her and try to push the narrative that if she's not your type, she shouldn't be anybody else's type too. We never get mad when anybody talks about the things that they like. It's when the conversation becomes that nobody should want to be with y'all single mothers do we start getting the backlash, right? Because if you don't want to date women with kids, guess what? Don't date women with kids.
This ain't me saying you ain't a real man if and the real man would. This is me saying shout out to the men that step up where other men stepped out.
I'm with you.
Shout out to the men that see the value in you as well as that life. Shout out to the men, because without those men, where would I be? There are so many boys that needed that guidance and that direction. And there's a man that loved their mama so much they loved them too. They showed up for them. Let me tell you this. I'm glad you disqualified yourself, because single moms ain't for every man. You got to have a certain level of responsibility, character, and intention. Let me tell you something. Single moms scare off men without motherfucking intention.
Mike, don't do that, Mike.
Let me say this, because I've been a single mother. We don't be worried about y'all. Let me say that first. Let me preface by saying that first. Y'all be summoning us. Because y'all be getting up in them comment sections and talking about us. When we be posting our kids and stuff, or when we post a man who actually wants us, y'all jump in the comment sections and call this man a simp and start antagonizing him. So then we don't have no choice but to start talking about it. Your preference is your preference. We don't care. Quite frankly, you probably shouldn't be a stepdad. You may not qualify for that.
Matey, I just be saying they not my preference. That's all I say.
Hold on, are you
your
And
type?
guess what? That's all I say.
Date your
I
type.
guarantee you, though, I don't be all over line. Shout out to my husband, but even before my husband, you didn't catch me online talking about what my preference was. It's my preference. Why I gotta explain it to the world? Why I gotta explain that to anybody else?
Well, because his preference don't want him. Because if your preference wanted you, you wouldn't even care about what your non-preference wanted.
And you know the question wasn't answered, because if you were answering the question, you would have started off by saying, men receive backlash or criticism for saying they prefer not to date or prefer not to commit to women with kids while they're childless but that wasn't answered that way. And then even one of the guys who's usually on point, he had a sign up clearly, all the real niggas stayed home. And I perceived that to mean that the dude asking the question isn't a real dude, because he's asking that type of question. You guys can read into it what you read into it. Someone could tell me maybe it didn't mean that, but that's what I perceive it to mean. Men do get backlash for not wanting to date women with kids, even if they are childless themselves, which doesn't make sense. You may want someone who's aligned with you. You may not want to step up into a role, because one thing that we're right about is it does take accountability. It's a child. That is a very serious situation. You're going to now be perceived as a stepdad, even if you don't want to be. Even if a woman says, my children have their father does a different role. If you're going to be with this woman, you're going to be around those kids at some point. You are going to automatically be in that role, regardless of what is said. You're going to have to deal with that drama if she is co-parenting. You're going to have to deal with the co-parenting situation and those dynamics. If she's not, then you are going to be a stepdad. You're dealing with a woman. If she has responsibilities and she has things to do, you now have to step up and help her with those kids. If you are her man, that would be your duty. All right? When she's unavailable because she has duties as a mother, you have to deal with that. If you want to say, look, I want to go on vacation next month, she has to find a babysitter. That costs money. You have to pay for that. So if a man is childless, he may not want to have to deal with all of that. And you never see women get the same backlash if a woman has no children and she says, oh, I prefer not to commit to a man who has kids. They don't get the same backlash that men get. And men are the ones who are the providers. So that's probably why social expectations is being perceived as judgment rather than preference. All of these different things contribute to why men receive backlash when saying they don't want to commit to a woman who has kids, even if they don't have kids. I don't recommend to any man who is childless. I don't recommend to any man or woman, if you're childless, I don't recommend that you go get someone who has kids. I will recommend to everyone to start their own family. I recommend people with kids date people with kids, and I recommend people without kids date people without kids. Because if you have kids, you understand more the dynamic of dating someone who has kids. If you are childless, I don't recommend you put that on yourself. Kids are baggage. It's simple. People don't want to admit this, but kids are baggage. So why do I want to date someone with excess baggage? She said, listen to the language they were using. You may not qualify for the position. So now they're putting someone who has kids, they're putting that on a pedestal. They're putting that as you're dating someone higher. Because you wouldn't say you may not qualify to bag groceries at the local bodega. You wouldn't say that to someone. But you would say you probably don't qualify to run a Fortune 500 company. You see the difference in the language, the verbiage that they use? So they're trying to say like, yo, you got to qualify to be a stepdad, to date someone who has kids. No, I'm overqualified for the position, which is why I don't want it. It's not something like you have this big thing you have to qualify for. No, I'm overqualified for the position based on where I am in life, what I'm doing with myself, and knowing that I could get a woman and have my own family. So, y'all can let me know what y'all think in the comments. I just think that they went about this wrong. They didn't really validate what he was saying and like why men receive backlash for it. It should have been a situation where it's like, look, people who are childless should date people who are childless. People who are in a relationship, who have kids, should date people who have kids. Now, if it's your preference, if you don't have kids and you want to go out there and go after someone with kids, then go ahead, do it. But this is what you have to keep in mind. But if you don't, then you don't. And no one should receive backlash for it. Should have been the simple conversation. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments.